This is your news source evening bulletin for today, Thursday, the 7th day of January in the year 2021. I'm Gordon Mosley. Here's what we're tracking tonight. With many Guyanese continuously flouting the COVID-19 regulations, the National Task Force dealing with COVID-19 will be making moves to enforce the regulations more. The National Task Force has come under criticism over its lax enforcement of the regulations. Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony today said he too believes that there should be stricter enforcement of the guidelines.
Most people have been complaining that we don't have as rigid enforcement as we should. And I think it's important that we reinforce these messages.
Guyana is likely to receive its first set of the COVID-19 vaccines just after April, making it even more important for the guidelines to be followed and for citizens to safeguard themselves. The health minister said the frustration of citizens is understood, but they still need to protect themselves.
It's almost going on to a year now that people were asked to use masks and to take all these different measures, and sometimes it can be fatiguing to take these measures, but we're doing so not because we want to inconvenience people, but because we want to protect people.
The authorities are hoping that they will receive the cooperation and collaboration of citizens so that the measures can be more effectively employed. Once there is that cooperation, the health minister believes the country could see a decline in the spread of the virus.
The more people that comply with these measures, the safer it's going to be for all of us, because we'll be able to interrupt transmission.
Guyana's COVID-19 cases have been climbing steadily. 33 new cases were recorded over the past 24 hours, with 5 persons in the COVID-19 ICU. The country currently has 307 active cases, with the majority of those persons in home isolation. Last October, the government launched Operation COVID Curb with the hope of sensitizing the public on the pandemic and easing the spread. The country has seen more than 2,000 new cases since then. More news coming up in a moment.
People we have
weathered every storm
and risen to every challenge.
Because it is the people of Guyana
that gives it its strength.
all the people,
regardless of race,
class, or religion.
we are one people, one strength.
And now is our time. A time to rise. Together, we rise.
Elite Fragrances and Tradings is your destination for the most luxurious deodorant, perfume, cologne, body spray, sunglasses, wallet, belt, spa, men hair products, and much more. Elite Fragrances and Tradings, 123 Regent Road border between Ornock Street and Shiv Chandapal Drive. You can contact us on 619-5151 or 227-1255. The perfect fragrance is the ultimate accessory.
I wanna be a Super 95 millionaire.
You can be a Super 95 millionaire this Christmas when you purchase $3,000 or more Super 95 fuel from Guyana service stations. Enter to win one of 2 first prizes of $1 million plus weekly cash prizes up to $500,000. That's not all. Each week until January 15, 2021, you can also have a chance to win smart TVs, tablets, shopping vouchers, and so much more. So hurry down to the nearest Guyana service station and spend $3,000 or more on Super 95 fuel, and you can be a Super 95 millionaire. See press for more details.
Mom, what are you doing with GPL on your list?
Child, you forgot I have to pay GPL?
You got time with GPL.
I have to keep these lights on. The customers who think in that manner and refuse to honor their obligation to GPL are obviously not playing their part in ensuring quality service delivery. So, I will continue to pay my GPL bill on time, every time.
I recognize the value of your point, Mom. You were right.
Months after the Trump administration in the U.S. pressured the APNU-AFC administration in Guyana to accept the results of Guyana's 2020 elections, the APNU-AFC, which is now in opposition, is calling on the U.S. to act in a manner that would be consistent with its global leadership. The statement by the opposition leader Joe Harmon today came in response to yesterday's deadly storming of the U.S. Capitol building by supporters of outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, who has been refusing to accept his loss at the November elections, is now being accused of inciting those who stormed the Capitol building. Mr. Harmon today said the APNU-AFC has taken note of the unprecedented developments in the U.S. and the storming of the Capitol building in Washington, as legislators were in the process of certifying the votes from the elections.
This, of course, is reminiscent of the storming and vandalizing of the Guyana Elections Commission Center at Ashman Building in Georgetown on March the 5th, 2020. And that also was aimed at stopping the tallying of votes cast at our general and regional elections. On that occasion, executives and agents of the People's Progressive Party executed this dastardly act in full view of several high-ranking Western diplomats. This event was a precursor to the installation of a PPP regime whose legitimacy is subject to judicial challenge in the High Court.
Following the Guyana elections, the APNU-AFC faced threats of sanctions from the Trump administration over the long wait for the results, no concessions, and claims of irregularities.
The APNU-AFC is of the view that the United States of America will have to act in a manner consistent with the global leadership role it has exercised in decades past, and it must do so quickly.
Guyana and the United States have shared close ties for several decades, and the U.S. over the years has played a pivotal role in supporting Guyana's electoral process and the Elections Commission. The storming of the U.S. Capitol building has come under widespread criticism globally, and several officials of Mr. Trump's administration have tendered their resignation over the incident. While the government of Guyana has not issued a statement on the situation in the U.S., Guyana's Attorney General Anil Nandlal, in a Facebook post, said he stands with those upholding the rule of law and calls for the will of the electorate to prevail as democracy battles for survival in its most formidable global bastion. The U.S. ambassador to Guyana has expressed her shock and sadness over the events which took place at the U.S. Capitol yesterday, including the storming of the U.S. Capitol, which resulted in 4 deaths. The U.S. Ambassador Sarah Ann Lynch said lawlessness and rioting are always unacceptable and do not represent the values of the United States as enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. In a Facebook statement, she said there is a role for peaceful protests to hold leaders to account, but that is not what took place yesterday. The ambassador said despite the chaos, America's democratic institutions remain robust. She said those responsible will be held accountable, and the democratic process will continue. The ambassador noted that the U.S. will have an orderly transition to a new administration on the 20th of January. She added that the United States has been tested before and will be tested again, but its strong institutions will always prevail. Let's tell you now that the U.S. Embassy here in Georgetown has announced that the commander of the U.S. Southern Command, U.S. Navy Admiral Craig Fowler, will be in Guyana for a 3-day official visit, which begins on the 11th of January. The embassy said the visit is part of the U.S. commitment to Guyana and its security. During the visit, the U.S. commander will meet with government and defense leaders and discuss the bilateral security partnership between the U.S. and Guyana. During his stay, Admiral Fuller is scheduled to meet with President Irfan Ali and Brigadier Godfrey Best. The Admiral will also take part in the signing of an acquisition and cross-servicing agreement between the two countries. That agreement will pave the way for the exchange of goods or services of equal value to support future bilateral defense cooperation between the two militaries. The embassy reminded that the U.S. and Guyana have a long-standing history of security cooperation. The defense partnership between the two countries includes collaboration against regional threats and challenges, capacity building engagements, bilateral training, expertise exchanges, exercises, and participation in military education programs. During the Secretary of State's visit to Guyana last September, Guyana and the U.S. signed the Shipwrighter Agreement, which allows for maritime cooperation between the two countries. The last time the U.S. Command's top military leader visited Guyana was back in 2017, when Guyana became the first South American nation to host the Caribbean Nations Security Conference. The U.S. Southern Command is one of the Department of Defense's 6 geographically focused unified commands, with responsibility for U.S. military operations in the Caribbean, Central America, and South America, as well as security cooperation with defense and public security forces in the region. Let's tell you now that the Coast Guard of the Guyana Defense Force and the U.S. Coast Guard will conduct their first joint patrols of Guyana's waters this Saturday as part of the operationalization of the Shipwrighter Agreement, which was ratified by the two countries last year. The agreement allows the U.S. Coast Guard to patrol local waters with Guyanese support to combat illegal activities. Saturday's joint operation has been described as the first of many others to come. In a statement today, the Guyana Defense Force said the exercise will take place off the coast of Guyana and will focus mainly on illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. The U.S. Coast Guard will be using its Cutterstone vessel as part of the joint patrols. The vessel is in the region as part of a multi-country tour. The vessel is a new one and part of the U.S. Coast Guard's flagships. Its presence in the region is part of efforts to support national security objectives throughout the Atlantic under the umbrella of Operation Southern Cross. Guyana, Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina are the countries named by the U.S. Coast Guard to be part of the operation during the vessel's deployment in the region. Police investigators are probing a shooting incident that occurred last night at the home of fraud accused and Ponzi scheme suspect Yuri Dominguez. 3 men in an unmarked car reportedly pulled up outside the man's Collagen East Coast Demerara home and opened fire, hitting several parts of the building. No one was injured, and it's unclear whether Dominguez himself was at home at the time. In a statement, the police said the incident, which occurred just before 9 p.m., is being fully investigated. The crime scene was processed late into the night. In its initial report of the incident, the police said the man once lived at the house, but based on information received later, it appears as though Dominguez and his family were still living in the property. The Cuban national is facing dozens of fraud charges in the courts related to an investment scheme that saw hundreds of persons investing millions of dollars with the promise of big returns. He is currently out on bail on the charges and has been making moves to refund some of his former clients. 139 persons lost their lives in road accidents in Guyana in 2020. That figure marked an 8.59% increase over the previous year. Of the 139 road deaths in the country, 5 were children. With the increase in the road fatality rate, the Guyana National Road Safety Council is continuing with its call for persons using the country's roadways to exercise more care on the roadways. In examining the data from the past year, the Road Safety Council also found that a majority of those who died in vehicular accidents were men. Coordinator of the Road Safety Council, Ramona Durgan, said the trend has been noticed. The Road Safety Council has found that speeding and driving under the influence of alcohol remain the 2 leading causes of road accidents and fatalities. The Road Safety Council intends to continue its work with the Ministry of Health, the Pan American Health Organization, and other stakeholders to raise more awareness of the need for more caution and consideration to be practiced on the country's roadways. The Road Safety Council is also partnering with the government of Guyana to have more speed management tools implemented across the country, including those traffic lights. This evening, a search is on for 3 Berbice men following the discovery of more than 80 pounds of marijuana in rice bags. The bust was made by agents of the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit in the community of Duxworth in Quarantine, Berbice. The condo agents were acting on information that they received. The bust took place on Wednesday afternoon. The 3 men were carrying the bags on their shoulders but dropped them and ran after spotting the condo agents. A search of the 2 bags by Kanu unearthed the 15 parcels of marijuana weighing over 80 pounds. Kanu is leading the probe of the discovery.
Due to the impacts of the global pandemic, COVID-19 across our nation, essential organizations like us have chosen to adopt innovative approaches to meet the emerging needs of our customers while protecting our employees. Here are some quick tips to make managing your GPL bill easier while we practice social distancing. To register for electronic billing, you can use the e-billing tab on your website. To access your bill balance, you can use 4 options: the website live chat at gpl.net, the online inquiry on our website under billing, SMS freedom by texting your GPL reference number to 624-0400 or 608-8400, or call our call center at 226-2600. A message from the Guyana Power and Light Incorporated.
We are legions of men standing strong, but never too proud to stoop and help someone. We must send a clear signal to all. Do right, walk in upright ways, knowing that's what being a man is all about. And ever aware that things will only get worse when good men do nothing. Stand strong. Be the one to live right.
Been through it all.
But as a people we have
Weathered every storm.
And risen to every challenge.
Because it is the people of Guyana
that gives it its strength.
all the people,
Regardless of race,
class, or religion.
We
are one people, one strength.
And now is our time. A time to rise. Together, we rise.
Across the region right now, in Antigua, education officials on the island have reached out to the Caribbean Examinations Council requesting a possible delay in the May-June 2021 exams by a month. Director of Education in Antigua, Claire Brown, said this is to facilitate the completion of the syllabuses that fifth form students are currently using, and to give educators more time to adequately prepare those students for the secondary exit exams. During a recent meeting, a number of public school principals and teachers supported that recommendation. Officials are hopeful that CXC will respond within a matter of weeks. Last year, the regional examination body was forced to implement a modified online and offline format with multiple choice assessments plus school-based assessments to determine final grades. Hundreds of students across the region were, however, unhappy with the format and complained about what they termed unacceptable results for both the CSEC and CAPE examinations. CARICOM, through its new chairman, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, has expressed deep sadness and concern at the unprecedented scenes that unfolded at the Capitol building in Washington, USA yesterday, during the certification of the votes of the presidential elections by the U.S. Congress. Dr. Rowley said the storming of the U.S. Congress was a gross affront to democracy and the rule of law in a country which has been viewed as a leading light of representative governance across the world. He said to this end, the regional grouping is looking forward to the restoration of order and the continuation of the process of transfer of power in a peaceful manner. And finally tonight, international news. After a chaotic day of protests and violence which resulted in 4 deaths, the U.S. Congress certified Democrats Joe Biden as the next president and Kamala Harris as the vice president of the United States. The action finalizes the 2020 U.S. election and makes clear that Biden will be inaugurated as president on the 20th of January. The U.S. Constitution requires Congress to count the votes of the Electoral College submitted by the states. Mr. Biden won 306 of those votes to 232 for Mr. Trump. Earlier today, U.S. media reported that Mr. Trump, for the first time, committed to a peaceful transfer of power. Meanwhile, Mr. Trump and his supporters have come under criticism across the United States and globally. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting.